For a lot of reasons. Did he just check us? We'll wait for a friend. Is she on or are we? Still next. Okay. So I'm next. We're good? Good evening. Welcome. I'd like to call the budget hearing for April 17th to order. Sue, would you please call the roll?
Councilor Carbone? Councilor Clancy?
Here.
Councilor Durick?
Here.
Councilor Bailey?
Here.
Councilor Rhodes?
Here.
Councilor Zambrello?
Here.
Councilor Timbrow? Deputy Mayor Forrest?
Here.
And Mayor Lesser.
Here.
Thank you.
Sue, for the record, Councilor Carbone is on her way, and Councilor Zambrello is going to be... Let's go, Zambrello's here. Councilor Timbrow... He's sitting. Yes, I'm a little mixed up, but Councilor Timbrow is going to be logging in virtually and fully participating in the meetings. I just want the public to be aware of that because of work commitments. She's not able to be here, but she's going to be fully participating, and we anticipate her logging in soon.
Thank you.
Just before we start, for the new councilors, which is, there are many of you tonight, this is the first of 4 workshops that we're doing, and then potentially 2 budget deliberations. And the usual format is that we will have presentations from departments, and you see the library here. They will make their presentation, and then we can ask questions, and we typically do. There's no public questions during this time, and then we will have each group present, and after each group presents, we will be able to ask some questions. And at this time, I'm going to ask Brooke and the library to present their budget. So Brooke, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm joined here with Kristen Michaels, Library Board Chair, and we do have board members present as well. So thank you to Scott Warren. The mission of the Wethersfield Library is to provide a welcoming community gathering place with free and open access to resources and experiences that engage the imagination, inspire learning, and promote the exchange of ideas. We do this by providing for the information, educational, and recreational needs of the Wethersfield community, either through materials, services, or experiences. Like the town, we too have a strategic plan that we are proud of. We have 5 strategic initiatives that I believe complements the town's new strategic priorities. Ours are satisfy curiosity and stimulate the imagination, support young learners and their families, celebrate diversity, be an informed citizen, and visit a comfortable place. Nearly a year ago, we reopened the lower level that was closed due to the burst water pipe. We're very pleased with the nearly end result. We still continue to work our way through a punch list. Many thanks to the staff, the town staff, especially the fire department, who I received a phone call from Sally Katz, and she said, the fire department's at the library. And she goes, they're not doing what you think they're doing. They pumped out the water. The physical services staff, that includes all of the trades, were there. I think there were some BOE staff there, and the library staff for helping us pull through that scenario. Moving forward, we are thrilled that we have a few exciting things coming up. The Friends are having a massive book sale April 27th and 28th. On May 9th, there's a poetry and art slam by high school students from Wethersfield High School. Our summer reading, the theme this year is Adventure Awaits, or Adventure Begins at the Library. We are working on installing a story walk in Wintergreen Woods, hopefully by the end of the summer, for the entire community to enjoy. And finally, we are moving forward with our library redesign project with state bond money. Thank you to our state legislators for that. It's very, very exciting, and we hope to come to you in your first or second meeting in June for the final architect approval. next year's budget, and we'll refer to the proposed budget. We are respectfully asking for an increase of $107,940, which is a 4.99% increase over the current fiscal year. These increases are in salaries, $44,560. We are in the process of union negotiations, so that's been factored into there, that there's a percentage increase in there, perhaps similar to what has been recently negotiated. In addition, it also accounts for the class and compensation study, and if any corrections need to be made there. There's an increase in tech support services of $56,000. A lot of that is related to ebook. In addition, we need to move, the library needs to move to a new email service, and so we need to implement that. Here it does say that there is an increase in custodial services. What you have is the adopted budget from this current fiscal year, and it was adopted whenever it was adopted this time, or last year. The contract that was approved, or the bid, or whatever purchasing process that is, showed an $8,000 increase than what we had budgeted and what was approved. So we had to pull that $8,000 out of other lines in order to make up for that. So even though it's an increase from the adopted budget, we adjusted it in our current fiscal year's budget. And so it is technically an $8,000 increase. Increase in office machinery services, that's a service contract. Increase in building materials, an increase in IT equipment and software at $2,500. And then we did decrease in certain lines where we thought we could perhaps get away with it, and that is in the repairs and maintenance of $1,000, travel, training, and dues $1,000, and decrease in specialized agency supplies $2,000. And that's like barcodes and wrapping for the book and that kind of stuff. So that is our increase. For capital money, I will always make a plug for capital projects throughout town, especially if it benefits the library. Anything related to roofing, water, and books don't go together very well. Any improvements to HVAC, I'm also a strong advocate for. But the library's big ask this year is for the funding of our RFID, and that's an upgrade and an expansion of that. We are beyond end of life for our current RFID. We currently only have the checkout portion. We do not have the check-in portion. The checkout portion, and I think it would be helpful to all of you as you deliberate to know the breakdown. The replacement of the checkout machines that are currently not really working ever at this point is $51,427, and the check-in portion, which would be an expansion, is like $151,000. So that's the breakdown of the two, if that's helpful for your planning. But we definitely need the self-check. I would love the expansion. It's a great time to do it as we look forward to the library redesign project. It would be helpful to tell the architects we're building this or not. And basically, it's patrons. You put it on a conveyor belt, it checks it in, it drops it into a bin, and then you utilize a minimum wage worker to shelve the book and to return it, or to queue it up with the holds or whatever. So to me, that really plays nicely into one of the town's strategic priorities of high-performing government. We've really tried to. I've been, for the past almost a decade, have been looking for two improvements technology-wise, and one has been voice over IP, and many thanks to the town council for approving that, and the finance and IT department for implementing that. That's a huge, wonderful thing, that we don't have handsets that fall apart, that we are not answering the phone going, yes, we're open, and that's the phone call, that they know we're open. That's wonderful. The other part is upgraded equipment. I've been asking for several years. It would be really, really wonderful to finally realize this and to move forward with that. So that's our capital ask. The library, we sometimes get this question, you have other sources of funding. So let me address that. It is extremely important to note that these other sources of funding that we do have are limited, they're often restricted, and they are intended to supplement and not supplant the library's general operating funds. And in addition, I have already accounted for their anticipated use in the library board's, the approved budget, One account, the Showman account, we received the proceeds from the sale of a house, and it was about $282. It's been underwater for the past few years. I haven't been able to utilize it at all. I'm very hopeful. We base a withdrawal on the June 30th statement. I'm hopeful I'll at least be able to pull a few $1,000s out of it for this upcoming fiscal year, but I won't really know that, and I can't make a recommendation to the board till I have the June 30th statement. But I'm cautiously optimistic as I receive my own financial statements. Things are looking a little brighter, perhaps. The Friends of the Library, I believe everyone heard Polly Moon, who spoke so well on behalf of the library, president of the Friends. As of March, the Friends had around $50,000. However, I always ask them for money. And I'm about to put forth an ask in May that is nearly $11,500 for just summer reading alone. In addition, they are contributing, they anticipate approving, and they'll do it in their May meeting, $5,000 towards Story Walk. In June, I'll be putting forth an ask to them, if the library board approves it, for $4,000 to $5,000 for museum passes. So there's $20,000 in 2 months. So as you know, they build up, they have a book sale coming up, and so they hopefully get $7,000 to $8,000 off the book sale, but I whittle it away very quickly. They are very interested in helping spend on some of the renovation-related items, which is wonderful. But once we get rolling with the redesign, their money isn't really going to go very far, but we would be very grateful for their support. The revenue that is part of the budget process, our proposed budget revenue estimate that we have submitted to the town is $3,500. There has been a movement for a couple of years now underway to go fine-free as public libraries. And I would say probably about 75% of the public libraries in Connecticut are now fine-free. In the surrounding area, Wethersfield and Windsor are the only ones that charge fines at this point. It's problematic from a customer service perspective at this point. The library board has asked me to look into going into fine-free, and it is anticipated that they will vote in the near future to go fine-free during the next fiscal year. This will impact where we, as proud members of the Wethersfield Hunger Action Team, that we do food for fines in the month of July. So we wouldn't implement it then. We would get food for the food bank. And then moving forward, maybe we just do a food drive in the summertime, which is a more difficult time for them to collect, is my understanding. So perhaps in August we implement it, perhaps in the new year, or in January we implement it. Currently, you have a document, I believe from finances included, that as of the end of March, that we are 69.5% spent out. As of this morning at 8:56, and maybe Mike O'Neill has more current things than 8:56 this morning, we are at 72.9% spent out. By next week, it'll be 75% out. We expect to spend our money. Yes. Last year, the library board voted to transfer, recommended that council approve $19 was our year-end transfer to go back to the town's general fund. So that's how close we keep the budget, is that razor thin. If there are cuts to the proposed budget that the library board approved, The process I do is I make recommendations to the library board for their consideration. My recommendation strives to have the least amount of impact to the public as well as to the staff and still maintain quality of service. The library board would have final approval of where the cuts would take place. What would be some of my suggestions perhaps depends on the size of the cut. Some examples include less hours of operation, looking at weekend and evening schedules. In the past couple of years, we have reduced the number of Sundays that we are open. It could perhaps be a reduction in collections, both in our online collections and print collections. I, at this point in time, would be very focused on our online collections. And when you are reducing these types of things, you're always looking at reducing the hours of staff, starting with the part-time non-union staff and then moving toward the union staff if it was a severe cut. And since 2014, I have been fortunate enough to have received basically the budgets we've asked for, and I've still been able to make reductions in staff through attrition and basically through retirements. And our FTE, full-time equivalent, has gone from 23.82 to 19. And I really can't go too much lower than that. And that's comprised of 34 humans, as I like to say. But that's basically, we feel like we've done what we can do in terms of that. And that does save the town on say, health insurance cost and whatnot. So that is our budget and our ask, and I welcome any questions that perhaps we can answer.
Thank you, Brooke. I appreciate all the work that you did, and your staff, and the friends being here. I should have pointed out to the counselors that the black book is kind of the overview, and the detail for the budget, and this one starts on C-148, is in the blue book, and it has more of the detail. And now open it up for counselors' questions. Deputy Mayor Ford.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Brooke, thank you very much for your presentation. We all know how valuable the library is as a community place, and of course to get a book from. My question is involving the CIP request of the $209 and plus $1,000, and it appears, at least from the notes that I'm reading here, that is that amount for the RFID and the sorter, or just one or just the other, or
So
neither?
It's for both. So it includes like the self-check and the gate,
Yeah.
and it includes the sorter. And so when I was referring the breakdown of the 209,000,
Yeah.
51,000 is just for like the self-checks,
Okay.
and then 151,000 is for the sorter machine, the check-in machine, the sorter machine. So that's the breakdown.
So does that have to do with the RFID tags you were talking about, or is that a separate program?
RFID is like, is a security tag
Right.
inside, and it has information of what the book is cataloged as. And so that's kind of an ongoing, it's like we buy that under specialized agency supplies. We'll buy like 6,000 at a time. If we buy 6,000 books, we put 6,000 tags inside the books.
Okay.
And so that's kind of built into a different part of the budget is the tag itself.
Got it. Where you just mentioned that in this line item because, of course, these would use that program, that
Yes,
system.
yeah.
Right. Now,
This is really the hardware and the software.
got it. So would you, if we could fund like one or the other, would that still help out the library, or does it come as a package? Like, could you use the
we
sorter
could-
coming in, but hey, the checkout's got to wait till next year, or vice versa?
So we really need the checkout for sure.
Okay.
The check-in, I really, really, really want.
Yeah,
I mean, like, and, I was hopeful we would have funded it by now. You can see an example of it at the Glastonbury Library. They renovated the
Yeah.
library, they put one in, it's all well and
And
nice.
and you showed us an example in the CIAC meeting
Yeah.
as well, so.
Yeah.
Now, if their sorter does exist, or even the checkout person, and we're sort of automating the process of moving books and cataloging them, et cetera, does that provide opportunity to reduce labor slightly? Because you did mention like using another person at a different labor rate.
Yeah.
And so if we went down that path, do we see a corresponding, of course, adjustment in
I've
labor?
achieved that already. We're there. Like, I've done that, but now my equipment is, like, I don't even have a self-check in children's at this point. I mean, it's been out of order for months. And so there's like a whole group of, like a generation of kids that aren't being trained to do it this way. And I have one machine that's barely holding on.
So what I'm hearing is it's not going to affect labor.
It did affect labor. I've been doing it this whole time gradually, but now I'm at the point I really need the investment of the infrastructure. So when I've reduced from 23 to 19, that's 4 full-time equivalents that over time where I've already allocated and whatnot. The department had that, I want to say had 6 FTEs. It's going to be down to 3.
But we don't have the sorter right now, correct?
Correct.
And so what I was asking is if we're going to make this investment in this technology in order to assist,
Yeah.
will it help out the labor discussion? And it sounds like it's not, for maybe a lot of good reasons,
I
but
feel like we've already achieved the labor portion of it. We're really stretched at this point because I don't have the working technology to complement what I've done on the, instead of having 2 humans at the checkout desk, I have one, but that one is quite busy, and voice over IP helped tremendously. And the other aspect is where we've gone from, in say 2014, that accounted for 38% of our circulation, our checkouts.
okay.
When it's dying, it was at 70%
Got it.
in December. And so, but it just, if it doesn't work, I'm going to have to staff that circulation desk with another human, which I don't really want to do, so.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Further council questions or comments? Nikki? Councilor Durek, I should say, sorry.
Thank you, Brooke. It was a really detailed presentation. So just to kind of follow up a question on what Deputy Mayor Forrest asked. So if we do get this technology, it's just going to make everybody's life easier and going to make sure that we can run at the capacity as when it comes to labor that we have right now. Otherwise, we are risking that we need to put more labor hours in. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. You can just give me that breakdown again? You said if we split it between the checkout and check-in, how much is each?
The checkouts are $51,427,
And that's the one that we really, really need at the moment?
and the other one, yeah, that I need, absolutely, that's the checkout machines. The other one, the check-in machine, the sorting machine, is $157,999.
Thank you. And then my other question is when it comes to technology support services, increase of 56,000, are we expanding some services, are we adding anything, or this is just an increase to maintain what we have?
I have a placeholder for $20,000 for email migration.
Okay.
I am hopeful that after that occurs, and then I have to, you have to pay for every email account, every year, and there's an annual fee for that, but that my tech budget goes from 166 to about 150 over in the long term. There's a 20,000, that migration to a new email there's a cost that's a project kind of thing, so. But where ebooks, I could spend 25,000 easily on Overdrive, or the Libby is sometimes referred to on the app on your phone. The other one, Hoopla, last year I spent 28,000, and I'm trying to hold cost, but you could just continually pour money into that with no end in sight. I mean, it's just, we just bought all the Nutmeg books, we're trying to buy the audio books. We have opened it up to the schools as well, so there's a way that they can check out, grade appropriate or age, whatever their criteria they use at the schools. They're also flexing our resources as well, and we do work closely with the schools. They buy the World Book online. I don't buy that. Does that hurt the children that go to Corpus Christi? Yes, but the vast majority of the kids in town do have access to the World Book online, and I do have a print copy at the library. But we do try to, what are you doing over here, and then what can we do to complement so that we're stretching the town's resources as far as possible.
Thank you.
Further council questions or comments? Councilor Rhodes.
Too much paper up here. Thanks, Brooke. Just a quick question about the the RFID system, if we were to get this system, what's the potential life of it? You know, is this a one-time cost, and then it lasts for how long?
Yeah, so our current one has lasted, well, is chugging along, barely, not really, over a decade. So it's kind of a long-term investment, and previously it was capital funded. And so, to me, it's a one-time, it's a technology that does last a really, really long time. One of the computers, we were running Windows Vista just to process the actual book, because that's the function that that particular computer is set up to do. It can last a long time, because it's not doing but just a couple of tasks. So they do last a long time. It isn't just, that, but we're at beyond end of life at this point. And we were one of the first libraries in the state to get it. And so everybody's upgraded a couple of times. We just haven't done it. And I'm like, it's still working, right? So-
And imagining that you have it, that then keeps those increased labor costs from increasing.
Correct.
Over that decade.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rhodes. Further council comments or questions? Brooke, I'll just say that I'm happy about the fines potentially going away. I'm very good at taking out library books. I have a couple right now that I'm reading. I'm not always great at bringing them back on time. And some of you heard me say I had the same problem in Newington, and I think I helped build their new wing with some of the late fees that I've paid over the years there. But I'm glad that you're considering going fine-free, and that you're going to continue supporting the food bank with July fines, because I know that's a nice contribution you make to the food bank. So if there aren't any other questions or comments at this time, yeah, of course. Yeah. Brooke, you want to give her the mic, please?
Oh, yes.
I know, I'm quiet.
Just want to introduce yourself again.
I'm a quiet talker. Kristen Michaels, the board chair. I just wanted to say on behalf of the board, we all unanimously voted in favor of this budget because we know how much care Brooke puts into it. She scrutinizes every dollar. Those of you who have worked with her before probably know she's a stickler. And those of you, many of you are new, but, she does take her job of spending our tax dollars very seriously. She really scrutinizes every line of this, and we, all, as a board, all feel confident that, this is the best budget that we can work with. And as she mentioned, we have a lot of projects coming up, Story Walk and the interior remodel, so we do need every dollar possible. And with regards to the RFID, that would make a big difference. If we're going to be doing a big interior remodel, it would be a disappointment not to have that as well to complement it. So that's just my perspective from the board.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. And if there's no further question or comments, thank you to the library. Brooke, friends of the library, thank you, everybody. And Chief, you guys are up next. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know, and that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, then why don't we ask them?
I don't see the 150. I'm the new kid on the block.
But overall increase is at 107.
That way I can hide behind the screen from council.
No, for the library. For the library, general.
We can stand up.
Yeah. No, 107. Right.
No, but it's saying 107.
But,
Actually,
so
we got a camera in the front, so you're good. Did you see that?
is that for ad? Or is that? Yeah, so where's their?
That's right.
Yeah.
Right, so $200,000 equipment that she wants, she's only $100,000 over her.
No, that's,
one second.
That comes through capital.
Okay, two totally different.
Two totally
So it's not included in
We do
the over. Okay,
So there will be the whole capital list.
yeah.
And you see how they do?
So the wants, sorry, yeah. So it's not going to be included in their,
That's why she put it down.
okay, perfect. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, I understand.
Thank you, Chief. You're up.
Okay.
Good evening, Town Manager Presley, Mayor Lesser, Deputy Mayor Forrest, and councilors. I'm Raphael Medina III, Chief of Police of the Weathersfield Police Department. Lieutenants Gustavo Rodriguez, James Bouyak, Richard Houghton, and Budget Analyst Tanisha Murray are present with me this evening. This is our budget team, as I put it. We are here to present the Weathersfield Department 24-25 proposed budget. First, I'll start with our mission statement. Excuse me. The Weathersfield Police Department, the mission statement of the Weathersfield Police Department is to deliver effective and efficient law enforcement and community-based services to all citizens of the town and the state of Connecticut in a fair and equitable manner, and will partner with the community to make Weathersfield a better place to live, visit, raise a family, and conduct business. So to give you a little background of our police department, where we are today, currently we are budgeted for 50 sworn officers. We're staffed at 45, that's 90% staffing. We are moving in the right direction compared to other towns. We are in pretty good shape, but we are still down 5. The gender breakdown is 36 males, 6 females, and the race 34 Caucasian, 8 Hispanic, 1 African American, 2 Asian, and you see the experience level of 19 entry level and 26 lateral. A little history behind what we do. I don't know if you have this presentation or if you have this is up here. First and foremost, the Director of Public Safety is the Town Manager, Fred Presley, who I report directly to. Under my command or my supervision of the overall purview of the police department, I have a confidential secretary, a deputy chief who I now need to replace as of yesterday, but we're working on that. Our EAP coordinator, our PIO, community outreach, and then three of the 4 division commanders who are sitting up here with me today, the 4 divisions within the police department. Lieutenant Gustavo Rodriguez, he oversees or commands the detective division, which has 6 detectives, 4 of which are for general investigations, backgrounds, and pistol permits. One's assigned as a juvenile detective, and another is attached to the DEA as a task force officer. Lieutenant Richard Houghton, who's sitting to my right, is the commanding officer of the Patrol Bureau. He oversees the 3 shifts: A Squad, which consists of 1 sergeant, 7 officers; B Squad, 1 sergeant, 8 officers; and C Squad, which is 2 sergeants and 7 officers. There's also a relief sergeant, and he also oversees our dispatch center, which is 9 dispatchers. Also under his umbrella are the 2 school resource officers, the DEER officers, the traffic unit, bike unit, which is part-time, our 10 cadets, and our motor units. We also have 3 officers who are assigned to the Capital Region Emergency Services Team on a part-time basis. That falls under his purview as well. Lieutenant James Bouyak, who's seated to my left, oversees professional standards and internal affairs. He oversees our accreditation, a civilian accreditation manager position, which keeps us accredited for CALIA and POST, recruitment and retention, which we're working really hard at, getting our staff up into full staff. FOIA, civil litigation, which is being very daunting lately with the new laws and body-worn cameras and requests for reports and video and redacting it to make sure we're not releasing any information that shouldn't be released. Our training unit and our records unit. And last, Support Services Bureau. The commanding officer of Support Services is Lieutenant Joseph Bache. He is not here tonight. He's currently in Louisville, Kentucky, finishing the administrative officers course at the Southern Police Institute. He'll be the last lieutenant to go through there, and the entire command staff would have been through an executive level training. But under his command, we have an administrative sergeant who helps us oversees the property control officer, the court liaison, the Marine unit, manages our fleet, and quartermaster. There's also the animal control officer that's part-time, our school crossing guards, building maintenance, and accident reconstructionists. Also under the umbrella is Tanisha Murray, who's seated to my left. She's the budget analyst. She technically reports to Bache, however, she works with all the lieutenants here on the, that's my fault, on the budget. during our bi-weekly budget meetings. As we go further into this, we're gonna talk about our budget and where we're spending money and what we need to look at closely. I know when I first was brought on, Deputy Mayor Forrest was a councilman, and I told him, give me a year to learn the budget. Last year, with Deputy Mayor Forrest and now Mayor Lesser, I said our budget was driven by contracts and schedule. So I'm really not going to try to go into the weeds, but I'm going to try to help enlighten you what we've been doing the last 2.5, going on 3 years with this budget, where it's been and where I plan on going with it, or where we plan on going it, I should say. So, just to take a look back at fiscal year 23-24, we had a budget, an adopted budget of a little over $12 million. $11.4 million of that went to personnel operating expenses. The other $648,000 went to non-personnel. As of today, well, as of the last pay period, I should say, unless Mike has something else that he hasn't updated us on yet, but as of March 31st, 2024, we have spent $7.6 million of that budget. We have remaining $4.4 million, technically 37%. This was with, I believe, 6 pay periods remaining, but now we're at 5. So we're another additional pay period into this. So to break it down for you a little bit further on the personnel expenditures, this is personnel, not non-personnel. So we're talking about the $7.1 million that has been spent thus far. The adopted budget for that one section was $11.4 million. As you can see, the majority of the cost went to, or 93%, which equates to $6.6 million, has gone to contractual salaries, health insurance, the pension, defined contribution, and workers' compensation. That's the bulk of where that money has gone. 7%, or $485,000, went to overtime. So the bulk of my budget on the personnel side goes to contractual expenditures. What we can really try to manage or mitigate is the overtime, and that's what we'll talk about. Do you have any questions on that as I go? Feel free.
Let's take them at the end, Chief. Go, keep going.
Okay. Non-personnel, last year the adopted budget was a little over $648,000. As of the end of last month, we spent $458,000. We have 28% remaining for the last 5 pay periods. For all intents and purposes, we've been under budget for the majority of the objects that are to your left listed there. I don't know if they explain what the objects are, but the code 52205 all the way down to 54423 are objects. So if you read from left to right, you'll see what's been adopted, what we've spent, and where we're at as of March 31st. We have gone over budget on copy and binding by $649. Our biggest overture was for object 52275, which is our repair maintenance equipment, and that was due to an unforeseen repairs to our elevator at the police department. If we had not had that issue with our elevator, we'd probably be still in good shape with that. But we're really getting close with 29% and 5 pay periods left. We're going to be really cutting this close on this budget. Hopefully we can stay under budget. So, overtime. This is our overtime by division. This is what has been presented to me by the finance department. I preempt that because the next slide we're going to talk about what I do as a department. But this is what comes from the finance department, the overall of what they're indicating what we have spent by division or by org for each division within my police department. As you can see, the adopted on the left-hand side, then the year-to-date, what we spent by each division. Dispatch communications adopted 88,000. A year-to-date, we spent 82,000, available 7%. The DD per here is stating that we are over budget by $207. Patrol, under budget by $29,000. Professional standards, over budget by $3,800. And then support services, under budget by $1,300. It indicates that we still have 94%, we've used 94% of our allotted budget and still have 6% left, like I said, and this was with 6 pay periods left. So I can tell you before we go any further that we are going to be over budget this year. So, now this, my team that's sitting before you, this is what we do. We take a deep dive into our overtime on a bi-weekly basis. We break it down by where we're spending money. Looking at dispatch, you look at the different categories of time and a half, double time, meal breaks, again, contractual, based on schedule. We are in a contract year, so I can't talk too much about that because that contract has not been settled. As of our calculations, we are 1% under budget. We still have $1,000 remaining. That was as of last pay period, but I can guarantee you, based on our biweekly averages, that we are over budget on that as of this upcoming pay period. The Detective Bureau, we are right now technically, based on our calculations, we are 53% under budget. What you don't see on here or on the other is that we take into account what we're getting through grants and through reimbursement through the DEA. That comes back into our budget for the DD. So we have a grant for $35,000 that we're still spending out of, and we have reimbursements through the DEA that come in quarterly from the federal government that refunds the overtime for our task force officer. So initially it comes out of the budget, but we get reimbursed for it later on. So we're compensating for that as we go. So even though the prior slides showed that we were over budget for the DD, for our calculations, we're under budget by 53%. Patrol showed that we're over budget, under budget on the last slide. Here, we're indicating that we are already over budget by 2%. Now, what we did do, and what I could talk about, is we have now entered into a new contract with the Weathersfield Police Union, and what we looked at last year, which was schedule and contract. We've since went to a 4-2 schedule in October, which allowed for more officers on the street and the ability to give time off without accruing too much overtime, and to utilize special days as training days that are paid for up front that don't cost us on overtime. So with that, we're starting to see a decrease. And when the new contract kicks in July of 2024, there's certain things that are going to be removed that will hopefully also reduce our overtime in that section. Professional standards, we're under 27%, and support services, we're under 41%. There's an Encore grant that comes with support services that's not listed up there that also helps subsidize our overtime. So, looking at that, based on Finance Department's calculations, they stated as of the end of March, we had spent $484,448 in overtime. Based on my team's calculations, we have spent $477,179 on overtime. That's a difference of $8,269. That's in with that 1-2% margin. So even though the slides differ, we're there. So we're understanding where our money's going, and we're trying to determine how to mitigate that. But to give you some more historical background on the overtime, here's a 9-year look back at the overtime. So if you look at this, so this slide depicts the overtime for fiscal years 15 through 23 and the projected cost, or what we're going to accrue this year in overtime for 23-24. So over the last 9 years, if you take that actual column and add it up, it equates to $6.3 million that's been spent in overtime in the last 9 years. You divide it by 9, the yearly average is $700,000. That's $27,000 biweekly. On the bottom, like I state there, projected for 23-24, we're projected to spend $620,000 in overtime. That's $101,000 over, or 16% over our budgeted amount of which is the 514, 545. However, if you look at fiscal year 22-23, we spent $767,000. We are coming in $147,000 under what we spent last year. That's a 19% decrease with the same flat budget of 518, 545. So that's a testament to what we've been doing. And if you take the last three columns since this team's been put together, 21, 22, you take the last column, add all three together, that equates to a savings of $195,000 over the last 3 years. Even though we've been over budget, we are starting to come down in our overtime, and that's what the purpose of this. There was one other point I wanted to make, was that the overtime budget for fiscal year 21-22, when I first was here, was $679,523 for 21-22. 22-23, council reduced that overtime budget to $518,441. A 24% cut, or $161,000 decrease in overtime to the budget that year. If the overtime budget had remained at $679,523, this year we would have come in under budget on overtime by $59,190. That would have been a 9% decrease in our overtime, coming under budget. And also, the last point, if you look at the slide, before I forget, if you look at fiscal year 23-24 projected at $620,000, that's the lowest it's been since fiscal year 16-17. Every year has been higher. So, testament to the team and what we've been doing and what we've been looking at the numbers.
We'll take questions at the end.
All right.
Just hold it.
Don't want to forget. All right.
Yeah, write it down if you need to.
So what are we looking for 24-25 on the operating expenses? So overtime, I'm requesting that the overtime remains flat at 518, 545. I'm not requesting an increase in overtime. The reason why I'm not asking for it is because this is going to be the first year of the new contract from June to July with the new implements that we have undertaken. So hopefully this year, July of 24 to June of 25, we'll get a true understanding of what our overtime is, and how we're spending money on overtime. And then next year will be the year that we'll take another look at it and discuss what we need to do. But for the time remaining, the other increases that we're asking for, that 7% increase is due to contracts, health insurance, and pensions. Those are where the increases are coming from. And you do see a decrease in workers' comp of $80,000. So the 7% increase that's requested for the operating expense of the department is due to contractual health and pensions. There's no requested increase in overtime. On the non-personnel expenditures, what we're looking for 24-25, again, you have the objects to your left. You can see the approved for 23-24. The total amount was $648,644. Excuse me. I'm requesting it's a 7% increase to $694,055. The requested increase is due to rising costs in copying, binding, maintenance fee for law enforcement-related equipment, uniforms, and elevator maintenance. I really don't want to go line to line, but it's there for you to see. But that's the summary of what the 7% increase that we are requesting. So putting them all together, just a quick summary of the first two personnel, non-personnel, which we've been discussed for the last 5 to 10 minutes. As you can see, the adopted for '24 was a little over $12 million. What we're requesting for fiscal year '24-25 is $12,914,632. That's an increase of $844,000, a little over, which is that 7% increase, which we just spoke about and broke down between personnel and non-personnel line items. Also with that, in addition to that, we're requesting funding for a CIP of $75,000 and CNEF for $133,808. The CIP request, and watching town manager's presentation the other evening, he touched on this as one of his. That's been recommended by the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee. It's a $75,000 for enhancements to the police parking lot. That's the first step of 3 to expand it, move the fences, move the gates, so that we have more room. It's getting a little congested back there. And that's over a 5-year period. For CNEF, I said this the last couple council meetings, and I'll say it again. When it comes to police cruisers, if I don't need them, I'm not going to ask for them. In this case, I'm asking you for 2. We have I need 2 Ford utility police interceptors for a total cost of $133,808. That's to replace cars number 4 and car number 21. Car number 4 is an administrative package that has 89,000 miles on it. That's going to be turned over to the town garage because it's no longer serviceable. Car 21 was deadline on September 1, 2023. Due to safety concerns with the engine, it had to be flatbedded out of the back of the police department. It's no longer serviceable, so now I'm going to be down 2 cruisers. And how do we get to that $133,808? The administrative package is $58,445. Like I said, that's going to replace car 4. The vehicle that's going to replace car 21, the patrol package, initial cost is $67,963, but then you have to throw in the laptop or the tablet, which is $4,000, the docking station for it, which is an additional $1,400, and it needs 2 rifle racks in the rear, which is an additional $2,000. So tally all that together, that comes up to $133,808 for CNEF. So in summary, for the fiscal year 24-25, the Weathersfield Police Department requests a 7% or $45,411 funding increase for non-personnel. The requested increases are due to rising costs for copy, binding, and maintenance fees for law enforcement-related equipment, uniforms, and elevator maintenance. Overtime, I'm requesting it just remains flat, and other increases for personnel are due to contractual salary increases, health insurance, and a pension. With that, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chief. I'll open it up to councilors. Councilors, questions? Anyone? Councilor Zambrello.
Thank you for that presentation. I just had a question about the CNEF request for car number 4. Can you explain what you mean by no longer serviceable? Because for me, just looking at 89,000 miles, that doesn't seem like a lot. So could you go into a bit more detail about that vehicle?
Our vehicles run 24/7. We've talked about that, and I'm looking for ideas come this year on how we can make them last a little bit longer. Even though it has 89,000 miles on it, the engine's constantly running, so the engine's constantly cycling. So in true actuality, it's an older engine than what's based on 89,000 miles.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zambrello. Further council comment?
Sure.
Councilor Clancy.
So the overtime reduction that you were referring to, is that based solely on the change in the schedule?
That's a lot of factors. That's this team sitting here and doing our biweekly overtime meetings, examining what the budget, what we're actually spending our money on. What you don't see and what you don't get is what I have here, is what biweekly, what my lieutenants do is they do the overtime individually by their divisions, and then they have to put a reason next to the biweekly on what we're spending on. So we'll look at, for instance, communication. What are we spending our money on biweekly? really comes down to is meal breaks and double time. That's contractual. Right now, we're at 362 hours of just overtime and meal breaks for dispatchers. And I really could get in the weeds with that, but that's just an overall, but it's a contractual thing. So we look at it so that way we can explain it and justify why we're spending the money. And it's the same thing with the patrol and SS and TD.
And so those are the only factors? Those are the only factors that caused the reduction? I mean, it was pretty good, whatever you did. I wanted to learn more about what that was.
Go ahead, Tanisha.
Last fiscal year, we were down a dispatcher, so we had a lot of overtime that needs to be filled. So we have that dispatcher now, so that helps bring some of the costs down.
And our lieutenants and our sergeants, we figured out how to backfill overtime without causing orderance. Or instead of filling overtime, pushing someone out to the road that was an inside officer and having them go on patrol.
Thank you. One more.
Keep going.
I want to hear more about the boat. Why does you're asking for a boat?
Oh, the boat's, I think it's a fishing boat. It's not a true police boat. It's outdated, and we're looking at getting a new one to replace it.
What kind of boat do you have, and what do you need?
That's already, I don't know exactly the boat. Beish is the one who's here who's looking at that, but I'll get back to you on it. I'll find out
Okay.
exactly what it is and the specs are for you.
Yeah, and I'd just like to know, too, how often do you use the boat? And
It's every weekend.
Is it?
Yeah,
And
we have three.
Do we ever use it where we're the only town using it, or are we using it in conjunction with other towns?
We use it for the code, but we use it in conjunction with Glastonbury and other surrounding towns to go out on the Hartford River.
Has there been any thought of sharing a boat with it?
I have not reached out to any other chief to check on that, but I could research that as well.
Okay, thanks.
All set, Counsel Clancy?
Yes.
Thank you. I think, Matt, did you? Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Thanks. Thanks, Chief. Nice job. And I know behind the scenes the last 2 years, we've had a lot of conversations. I'm really proud. I know you're proud because it beams, and you should be, because I know where you've gone the last couple of years, and it takes some, even though my impatience, I know, it takes some time to kind of turn a ship in the right direction, and I get it. And we've worked well to do that. So a couple follow-up questions, general stuff. This might also be to Mike, but I saw that the pension line, which of course is a significant line in the budget, was 50% spent. Is that just something that gets paid biannually? So like at the end of the year, we'll just pay the second lump in and you get to 100? Because obviously we're past 50% of the year. Yes? Cool. Technology upgrades. You and I have had conversations, and I know that we've already done some of them, but I didn't see any like really technology-specific packages. Like I've talked about drones, and when we have, the big celebrations down in Old Weathersfield, and there can be some, and there probably are other technologies that you and I have talked about. What is your thought about technology funding to assist in the crime fighting and public safety and so those kinds of things? I bring up the drones as a hot topic, but it could be other things in your mind.
I'm glad you brought up the drones, because I'd love to get drones. Unfortunately, right now, with the new legislation that might be passed, we might have to wait till October of 2025 to see what type of drone we can invest in. So I was looking at that until that just came out this past week, so that kind of got stalled. As for other technology, I am open for it. The more help we can get, I'm excited about the mayor's looking at getting the red light cameras and speed cameras on the Silas Stain. I think that's fantastic. I think that's not just a revenue generator, but a deterrent. Between the deterrent with that, the cameras, anything we can do to deter anyone from coming in and doing any criminal activity in our town will be greatly appreciated. So I'm always on top of that. The other thing I didn't touch on when it comes to fleet, what I've been looking at, I'm trying to look at is getting the cars installed with a dual battery. I know one of your concerns when I first was here and we spoke about is why the cruisers are running 24/7 to Councilwoman Zambrella's point.
Right.
If you have a dual battery in it, we can go ahead and turn the cruisers off, but
Yeah.
it'll be hooked up to the MDT so the computers don't shut off. That way they can jump back in the cruisers and turn them back on. I spoke briefly with the town manager about this. That's an idea that I'm looking at doing to prolong the fleet, so they're not running 89,000 miles and turning them in. That's some other technology we're looking at. So we're constantly looking at technology and how we fund that and how we can pay for it. I am excited to say, though, that, as of tomorrow, our gator will be here, so we'll have it for the fireworks. Just another, something to help the police department, help the community.
Great.
Just to jump on two things in
Sure.
technology that you're already starting to implement. One is the printers in the cars for
Yeah.
tickets, e-tickets. All cruisers have those now, so no longer handwriting tickets unless it breaks down or goes down.
Good.
But usually those are all printed out in the vehicle, so that's an advance in technology that
I feel like that's a morale booster.
Yeah, it's a lot easier, especially with accident scenes. You can put the information in and print out 4 copies. It's a 4-car accident versus writing 12 pages of paper
Right.
for information. Also, in the 4 new cruisers that we're getting, that was in last year's budget, we're getting for this year and the budget before, the tablets are now the modem is in the tablet. So it's not in the back of the car. We had a lot of issues with those modems in the back of the SUVs burning out or not, syncing up. So now they're in the tablet itself. So it saved some money there, and it's an advance in technology that you don't have to worry about additional parts and more IT stuff breaking down.
And some other technology that we have implemented this year is our DTS scheduling software, where now our scheduling is done over computer, over the phones, and it hooks right to Munis, so we have more accurate timing of our officers for overtime and regular shifts. And there's a couple other things we also implemented as well.
Now, on the revenue side, am I going to find sort of the revenue of policing in the police department, or am I going to find it on the revenue line of the master budget? I can ask
Mike?
Maybe Mike?
Mike? We write tickets and we get revenue?
If you go to the front of your book,
Which book?
The budget book.
black binder, first tab is a blue tab. You see several pages with blue stripes.
Yep.
You go to the second page, you'll see a section called fines and forfeiture. And you can see some history and budget.
Section 4600?
You got it, yes.
Yep, or 46,000, really. Okay, thank you very much. The big line, 5,001, 50,001, salaries and wages. Total amount, and we've talked about, like, the ability to hire, and we want to hire appropriately, and all fantastic. Does that number represent, or how many people does that, or police officers, I think is specifically for that line, but correct me if I'm wrong, does that represent?
50.
50?
And dispatchers, so it'll be 59.
So that number handles is for dispatchers, wages for dispatchers and police?
I believe so. Mike?
Sorry. Question?
Mike, is line 50,001, the wages salaries line, is that for the dispatchers and the police officers?
Yeah.
And civilians.
Oh, civilians too, okay. So it's everybody.
So do we currently have that full, if that's what the budget is, do we currently have that full cadre? Or are there positions that are still open?
We have positions still open, we do.
And how many are open, let's say, how many are designated for the police and how many are open?
So we're open, we have 5 down for the officers, we're at 45. We're down 1 dispatcher. And we still have to fill the civilian accreditation manager position. So that's 7.
5 officers, a dispatcher, and civilian accreditation. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Are you planning on, do you anticipate, I know you want to, do you anticipate filling all those in the next budget year?
I do. I think what Lieutenant Bouyak overseeing recruitment and retention, we talk about this in our other bi-weekly, I say we have bi-weekly budget meetings. The other Thursdays are personnel meetings, and we talk about the recruitment and retention and personnel matters. Right now, even though we're down to 5, we have 1 that's getting sworn in on April 22nd. That'll bring us down to 4. We have another one going through our background process who's a lateral. That'll bring us down to 3. And based on the new contract, we're getting a lot of interest, per se. And with that, ironically, compared to other towns, like I said before, when in doubt, we pass. So we passed on a lot of applicants because we didn't feel that they would be the right fit or whatever backgrounds they have. So we're not just hiring to hire, we're hiring the right people for the town. So I'm confident we will have that filled.
The full cadre of budgeted people. And what is the anticipation? It takes about like half a year to sort of fill that up, or what's your anticipation for that?
I really don't know, I'm looking more at the fall, because
Yeah.
there's a process that we have to go through with each one of them.
And maybe this is for you and Mike, is that sort of why when I'm looking at that line item, it's sort of at 68%, and I feel like we're probably more like 75 to 77% the way through, so is that where that gap comes from on the salaries and wages line? The, 4 officers overtime, and
Exactly.
obviously we just lost the captain, so that's today or whatever.
I'm not following where the 75% comes from.
Well, I was doing some quick math in my head, but this is basically till April 1, which looks like it's 3/4 of the way through the year.
68%.
And it says the percent used was 68%, so that's 7 percentage points different. And so I was wondering if that 7 percentage points is just simply reflected on the fact that we are 4 or 5 officers or 3 or 4 officers not currently as part of the budget, because they're not employed, but they're budgeted.
That's reasonable, I don't like to speculate, but that's a very reasonable.
Reasonable assumption?
I'd be happy.
Reasonable assumption?
I'd be happy to dig into that. Finance director.
Okay.
But that's a reasonable observation.
Got it. And we talked about cars. How are the electric cars working for you?
They're working well. They're now into the ones in patrol, and the admin package has now been assigned to the detective division, so they're going to get more use out of them. For an everyday car around town,
Yeah.
they're a good car.
Okay.
Long-distance driving, depends on how you drive and where's the battery down. So, for an everyday use in the car, they're fine.
Is it working out okay as a patrol car, though? Because we talked about, those vastly different uses.
I think the charging times on them, 7 hours compared to refueling a car in 5 minutes, is an issue that you would have to look at unless you want to double your fleet
Yep.
of EVs. I think for now, until they work on the batteries and how quick we can charge them, I'm say that there need to be more research done on it.
Okay. Is there another type of electric car that you might want to pilot with your fleet than the ones that you have right now?
I was looking the other day as a hybrid Ford Explorer. I want to see if they still make it. It's a police package.
Right.
I saw that the other day, and I said, well, that might be something that we can look into as well.
And not to hide the ball here, the reason is that we're applying for these large grants to handle a lot of this stuff. You have needs. If we can help you fill those needs and do right by the town, of course, we're going to try to do that. Thank you. That's all the questions that I had.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Further council questions?
So quickly.
Councilor Carbone and then Councilor Dirk.
Thank you for coming in and presenting this budget. We all know you guys do a great job, so we want to support you as best we can. And I just have some questions that everybody probably knows the answer to, except for me. So I just want a little bit of clarification, if you don't mind. So I think to piggyback off what Councilor Forrest was saying, or excuse me, Deputy Mayor, I'm so sorry. With the budgeted money for the police officers, because I was just curious, where does that money that is not expended for the salaries go at the end of that term, like after the end of that budget season? Do you know what I mean? Am I making that clearly?
Question for Mike.
So you may recall that in August, we do year-end transfers.
Okay.
So if there's money left unexpended in any departments, we first reconcile to cover any overages and other departments. And then we present to you a proposal to either let that roll to fund balance, and it'll just go to reserve, to the rainy day fund, or to transfer some of that unexpended money to capital projects typically,
Okay.
CIP fund. Or
I do remember
CIP.
this now. Thank you.
So
Okay.
Capital or equipment.
Yeah. Thank you. And then also, like I made myself some notes and it's chicken scratch. The health insurance. So I've been hearing across the board, the health insurance is going up. Are you pretty set that that's going to be at the 10% mark for, I don't know.
I should probably be speaking up here.
Because I know we've talked about, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, the fluctuations in the insurance, and we're talking some may come down, so I was just curious.
You're asking about the unexpended amount that you saw on that health insurance line?
No, I'm actually asking the 10%.
Budgeted 10%.
The budgeted 10%,
That's in the town manager's proposed budget.
yeah.
We-
And the police.
That'll come down.
So theirs as well, you think?
It'll affect all departments,
Okay.
because we allocate that
I was just curious.
across all departments.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then, did you receive the cars that, because I know, didn't we, how many cars did we approve last year? We got the e-cars, which was on you. And then, did we purchase you 2 cars? Forgive me, I think I was just traumatized by that last budget session. I blocked it all out. I don't really remember too much of it.
I didn't request any vehicles last year.
You didn't get any?
No.
Okay, but, because I remember you had some on that were being processed, getting put through, but it was going to be such a long time before you got them, and have
That's
you received
correct.
those? You have them all that have been
We
ordered
still
and
have-
processed?
We still have 4 that are at MHQ right now that are getting upfitted. So the length that it takes when we order a car to getting it in, it's a couple of years.
Years.
So the ones that we ordered 2 years ago, the 4, are now finally coming in.
Okay.
So we're constantly looking at our fleet and starting to project out what's going to start coming offline in the next couple of years.
Okay.
So these are the 2 that are coming offline. We're going to try to replace those now. We already replaced the other 4 that are coming offline this year. So as they come in, we take a car offline and send it to physical services, our town
So
garage.
2 you're projecting coming in this year, meaning this summer, this fall, coming in soon?
4.
4 are coming in, but they're, okay, perfect. And then also, I see on the budget, thank you for that, the budget, the defined contribution pension, I think I noticed on the slide too, you're over budget on that. Does that have to do with overtime?
No, that's the Mike O'Neill question, defined contribution.
Is that obviously contractual, but why, if it's contractual, why would it be over?
So the defined contribution pension is the 401A plan, so employees that do not have a pension, the traditional defined benefit pension, the town matches a percentage that the employee puts into the 401A account. It's like a 401K, it's the same type of plan. So that can be affected by overtime.
Oh.
Because the match is a percentage on the salary paid, which includes overtime.
Okay, I was curious. All right, thank you, that's it for me, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilor Carbone. Councilor Dirk.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief, for presentation. I love the numbers, especially the overtime numbers. I think you guys are doing a great job. I wasn't here before to see how bad it was, but it looks good right now. Just a quick question. A lot of these questions were answered by before. If we do get those 5 new police officers, are we going to have needs for more cars, or are they not necessarily going to increase the need for the cars?
It's not going to increase the need for the cars. What it's going to do is allow us to start having putting officers in the specialty units. Right now, even though we have a traffic unit, it's not filled because we're short-staffed. Now we can get that EV back on the road doing traffic, making stops on the side of Steen, Berlin Turnpike, our hotspot areas. Fully staffing the DD, we're down 2 there right now. There's supposed to be 6, we're at 4. So those areas which we have voids, when we get those 5, we can start backfilling in those spots where we need the bodies. But right now, patrol is the primary backbone of the police department, and that's where we have to concentrate and make sure our officers are out servicing the community on the patrol side.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dirk. Further council questions? Just 2 from me, Chief, and they've already been asked about. We just want to explore them a little further. But let me first say thank you for all the turnaround stuff that you and your team have done, the dramatic improvements you've made. They're greatly appreciated by the whole community. I want to explore the overtime for a minute and go back to the question that if we get fully staffed with our patrol and get up to 50 officers, how that might impact, and I'll just note for the community to recruit is very difficult today, and to think that we're a place that officers want to go, and that you and your team are being so selective is great for the town of Weathersfield. So thank you. But how might, if we get up to 50, how might that impact the overtime?
When we get well, I shouldn't say if, when. When we get to fully staffed, that's going to affect the schedule. We'll be able to plug the holes, less overtime, more ability for our officers to take time off without backfilling on overtime. That way the 4-2 schedule is designed, we can have a 1 in 5, 1 in 6, which is a 1 sergeant, 6 officers on patrol. What I'm looking for, minimum staffing, you remember when we first got here, the car plan was a 1-5 on a good day, a 1-4 on an okay day, and on an average day was a 1 in 3, which was 1 officer, 1 sergeant, 3 officers on patrol. The new 4-2, it keeps it at a 1-4 minimum, so we have a car in each district, response times are better, service of town's better, but for the majority of the time, we're at a 1-5, 1-6, which gives our officers the ability to take time off without incurring overtime. We don't have to backfill, so that'll reduce the overtime, we'll provide services to the town, so that's the main goal of that 4-2 and getting us fully staffed. So in turn, that reduces the overtime.
So it's likely if we get that staff, we would not go over that 518 number like we're going over this year. Is that correct?
That's why I'm keeping it flat this year, because this year is going to be the true year from July 1 to June 30th. Obviously, we're not fully staffed, but we're going to have a good idea because we are pushing a lot of guys, a lot of our officers are on patrol. So we're looking at keeping patrol staffed fully at all times. If you understand what we might take from other units or divisions, but patrol is what our target is.
Got it. And the other one, I just want to explore a little further, the E-cars. The Deputy Mayor was asking how they're performing, and that we have 2, and that we're paid for by asset forfeiture. As we get new cars in the fleet, and I know we're placing 2, are we analyzing whether we might, or are we not, maybe not ready to do this, are we analyzing whether we might, when we replace with an E-car as opposed to a traditional police vehicle? And maybe that's being looked at, and there's probably advantages and disadvantages, but want to know if you're looking at it. Someday, a lot of us probably won't be sitting there, they're all going to be e-vehicles at some point in the future. I don't know when that's going to be, but...
No, we can, and we will.
Okay. Good. Well, that was easy. I don't have anything else. Anybody else? Nobody? Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everyone, appreciate it. Officers, thank you. So Parks and Rec, Kathy and Rachel, and I think we have Erica too in the back. Youth Services. Welcome. Whenever you're ready, Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you. We're going to start with the Parks and Recreation budget first.
It may be helpful for those who don't have, do you have the page number in the blue book, or anybody that has it?
161.
Was it 161?
161.
161 in the blue book.
C-161.
Thank you.
It starts on 157. But the numbers are on 161.
Thank you.
Just to give you a little background on the Parks and Recreation Department, kind of an overview of what we do. Many of you are familiar with the programs we run. We run programs that are for recreation programs, aquatics, therapeutic recreation, preschool, which are all the cute little kids at the community center. Our fitness programs, at this time of year, we're getting ready for all our camps. And then, of course, we do all our facilities with our parks, athletic fields, playgrounds, basketball, tennis courts. We also have the Nature Center and all the activities that go on there that involve all our nature and environmental education. We also oversee the Solomon Wells House. one of the new things we've done in the past couple of years is we've taken over the booking of school use for all the outside groups and putting in any of the activities for schools, for all the schools after hours use. So that's been a unique challenge, and staff are doing a really good job with that. One of our favorites, of course, you all know about all the special events. I'm not going to go into them, but they're all throughout town. Coming up this Saturday is our fishing derby for all the kids in town, Saturday morning at Spring Street. And it's one of my favorite programs because if you think about it, it's the quietest event we do. And the kids are very, very passionate about trying to catch the fish. So that's kind of fun. And also we partner with the Keene Foundation and assist them with all the Keene after-school programs that go on. All the staffing is hired through us, and all the registrations go through the Parks and Recreation Department. So it's, looking at it, sometimes it amazes me how much work and how great the staff are at juggling all the different responsibilities we have and the ability that we have to impact the community in different ways and help create some community cohesiveness. And when we hear people talk about they've had a great event, a great time at this event, or we find out that when we open summer registration, in a half an hour, half of our camps are filled. In an hour, they're all, well, the Nature Center was all filled. And swim lessons are right up there too. So it's nice to know that the community really waits for it, appreciates it, and they keep asking us to do registration earlier for the summer. So we all have our challenges, but it's an extensive set of programs and facilities that we do operate. And with that, I'd kind of like to just kind of go over a little bit about the staffing in our department. So with our staffing, there's myself as the director, Rachel is our assistant director in Parks and Recreation. We have 2 recreation supervisors, one that oversees the community center and does a lot of our camps and our art programs and fitness programs. The other recreation supervisor works with our aquatics programs, also does summer camps, and does all the athletic fields and working with all the youth sports groups. And that's probably another thing that we do. We work with a lot of the community groups in town to assist them in some of the things or events or programs that they're looking to do. And we've gotten good at doing partnerships with the different groups just to be able to have more activities happen in town in different ways. So it does keep us busy. We also have a therapeutic recreation supervisor that works with all our people in our community that have special needs, and also with peer groups that work with that group. And we have a youth development manager that we share with social and youth services. One part of the job in Parks and Recreation is the Nature Center operation, and in social and youth services, it's our positive youth development programs, particularly at the middle school. We also have an office manager, a full-time tech assistant, and that's the school building use position, and 2 part-time tech assistants, and also our 2 custodians at the community center that are invaluable as we work with the community center. I can't believe I forgot to mention the community center in our responsibilities. I did write it down, I just didn't. Yeah, I didn't write it down. Anyways, and obviously the community center is a big part of what we do. And it's exciting to know that we're starting some planning to look at how to look at that building in the future. So that's kind of exciting happening coming up. So that's kind of a quick snapshot at the Parks and Recreation Department. Looking at our budget, you're going to hear it and continue with it. With our full-time salaries, they are directed by all the different union contracts. You'll hear me talk about all of our part-time and seasonal staff that we hire a lot for our summer throughout the school year, and that is very much affected by the state's minimum wage that goes up now every year. So this current year, it went up in January of 2024, and it went up 4.6%. So it went from $15 to $15.69. We rounded that off to $15.70. And that had an impact on our budget this year and will now impact us as we go forward in next year's budget. But here's the tricky part. It will get affected again because the state in October of '24 will determine what the minimum wage increase will be for January of '25. And we don't know that yet. So we made an educated guess that it will be similar to what it was this year. So you will see that our part-time increase has nothing to do with increasing hours in any of our programs. It has to do with just the minimum wage going up. And that has a big impact on us because of there's so many. And you may think it's just minimum that is increasing. But what happens is that all our seasonal staff that supervise the people that are minimum wage, if we don't increase them, there'll be a crunch in that scale, and it'll impact our supervisors that are part-time and seasonal. And so we also have to increase them to kind of keep everybody at their level of responsibility. So it kind of goes across our part-time salary scale. And having said that, that brings me into a couple of the other things that have increased in the Park and Recreation budget for next year for the proposal. We partner with the school district on helping to pay the salary of the Weathersfield Early Childhood Coordinator. And right now, I'm asking for an increase of $5,000. We're currently at $20,000 this year. The school district is at $30,000. I'm asking ours to go up $5,000 to $25,000 to try and begin to match with the school department with that position. And that position works with all our preschool and their families in town and makes them aware of programs that are going on and how best to get their children in preschool, ready for kindergarten, a lot of different things that go on through the Early Childhood Collaborative. So that's been something we've been working on increasing for the past couple of years. Utilities have the increase. They're not going, well, we think they're not going as much as they have in recent years, so that increase is there for our utilities. And we also have our repair accounts. We have repair accounts for the community center, the Solomon Wells House, and parks. And we're looking to increase the parks repair account by $5,000. It's currently at $5,000 now, and we're just finding that things need to be repaired, and we're asking for an additional $5,000 for the parks repair account. One of my favorites is the portable toilets. We have portalettes all around town. You've all seen them. Kids use them. And they are going up. We just found out that through the Capital Region bid, the regional bid, it was originally $69 for one portalette per month. It's now gone to $100 for one portalette per month. And if you just mentally count all the ones that are around town, you can appreciate the increase. And that bid hadn't gone up in about 3 years? 5 years. So they're making up for missing the 5 years. So that's gone up. And then we have a slight increase in our materials and supplies just due to the increase that is going on with supplies. That sort of covers the budget. I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about our capital improvement requests. We always look at our capital projects and set a request and then meet with the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee and present them to that committee. And this is prioritized by the committee, and also our Advisory Park and Recreation Board looks at them. And our funding requests, over the years, we We've not gotten a lot of capital money, we've gotten some, and so my requests for each year are always high, so, and we always do get funded for the ones that are the most important. So a couple of the key ones on here is the Nature Center. We've been looking to get funding for the concrete sidewalks around the building there. They've been cracking, they get repaired, they keep up with them, but it's at the point where we really have to work at really getting in there and replacing some of them. And then my all-time favorite is the banquet room air conditioning unit that unfortunately every year keeps increasing, and we keep asking for it. And we're on borrowed time with the one we have. It was installed in 1996. We've gotten our money's worth. It gets repaired every year, and so it is a big-ticket item, and it's probably why it hasn't been funded in past years, because it is a big-ticket item. And it's right now at $681,000. It's all designed, we're ready to go out to bid, we just don't have the funding yet to do that. And then at the community center also, if you've been at the parking lots, you know that we've got a lot of potholes there. They're repaired every year. The problem is they're just going deeper, and it's harder to keep up with them. So we're looking to get some money to do some deep surface repair with our parking lots at the community center. And I happened to be there the other day when it was raining, and what had been a little pothole turns into a bigger pothole with all this rain that keeps happening. So that's something we're looking at. We've talked in recent times about playground replacement equipment. We're looking to get on a standard. If we ask for $50,000 every year, that'll keep us up to date with what may go on. We have the playground surface at Emerson Williams that we're looking at. Our Solomon Wells house, we need to look at that with the exterior repairs. The house is 1774, and we just found out recently that this is the 250th anniversary of the house. So more to come. But just to keep that in mind, so that's why we have to keep up with the house. And we're looking at different ways to get the parking lot at the Wells House paved, and we're looking at different grant opportunities. But I always keep it on the capital list, because one of the questions they always ask, Bill, is it on your capital improvement list? So I always say, yes, it is. But we do try and look to, and we have some opportunities we're looking at that grants might be available. And then we always had put on the Millwoods Park, the multi-use field. So that's something that the council has approved, but this was done prior to all that, so that's there also. That, in a quick snapshot, really, of our budget for the year, for a request for next year.
Thank you, Kathy, and Rachel and Erica, and thank you for all the work you do. It spans so many different areas throughout town. It's
Haven't
much.
touched on Erica yet.
We haven't got to Erica yet. So with that, I'll open it up to councilors for questions. Councilor Bailey.
The exterior repairs at Solomon Wells, is that the deck around the house?
That's the deck, that's the columns of the porch, that's the shutters, it's the clapboard, some of it that's rotted. Yeah, it's all of that. And the deck, the porch especially. And painting, it's kind of everything.
Councilor Bailey, you have the floor.
No, it's good.
You're all good? Okay. Further council comment? Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Thanks, Mayor. Two anticipated questions. The first is, we see from a personnel standpoint that the increase is 7.37%. And in my head, I'm trying to reconcile that with, of course, we know that there's contractual, but is it that our contracts increase that personnel wages by 7.37%? Because I don't remember approving contracts at that level, but.
Benefits are included.
Did you hear the town manager?
Yeah.
Maybe you
so
want
that-
to tell that so the whole.
So it's-
Hear that.
The increase in benefits are included in personnel.
and Mike can correct me if I'm wrong on that, so.
So it's wages, that percentage.
Pension, health, obviously, there's a 10% number in there for health, so all those things together, it averages out to about 7.
Got it. So this is not just wages, this is wages, health, and everything. Got it. Thank you very much for that. It was very enlightening.
I think it was a little confusing because the police actually broke those numbers out.
They did,
for you,
now this is,
and
right.
everywhere else you see it, it's going to be all combined into one.
Interesting. Now, I guess if we're talking about that though, right, it's still 7.37 on all the line items. So is it really, and our contractual rate doesn't have pension increasing by 7%, that would just be a separate line item. So is it really the health combined with a lower wage, the rest of the rates that's increasing it this much?
It's all, it's salaries and all benefits. Again, we can dig into it for you. I can tell you what we do see with pension, because pension's a very large number, and if there are retirements in some departments, so the total cost of the contribution always goes up, and we allocate that to departments based on employees who are in the pension plan. So you can have a smaller department where someone retires and all of a sudden their budgeted share of the pension contribution goes down significantly because it's a big number even for any, it's based on salary.
Mm-hmm.
And then that has to be absorbed somewhere else. That can throw things off in strange ways. We've seen that in the last few years as the pool of employees who are in the pension plan goes down.
Right.
But again, we can break that number down for you and just.
Might be a little helpful to see the spread out. So we might see salaries increase at whatever the number was, right, 3 or 4%, and then we'll see the other sections. And then if it's broken down, we can see the consolidated number and how it came to be the 7.37. That would be a little enlightening. I appreciate that. Next question is.
Excuse me. Also, we had contracts that were settled this year that had an impact on this year's salaries, and also in our proposal for next year, because it wasn't budgeted in this year's. So the increase may look bigger for some of the contracts.
But we were paying retroactively for resolutions of prior contracts?
That's a very good point. I'm sorry I didn't mention that.
Yeah.
So, for unions that are in negotiation, either presently or at the end of this fiscal year, at the end of June, we do not budget a salary increase in the department. We include a provision in the, if you look at your expenditure lines, you'll see a department, it doesn't have any people in it, but there's a department at the end of the budget called Reserve for Retirees. That's where we have our retiree medical and related expenses. We have some other items in there too, which we'll talk about one of these nights when I'm at the table. But included in that, so we'll take, if we assume a 2% increase for the library, or library is a bad example because we don't do it for the library, but if a 2% increase for custodians, we would calculate that, but instead of showing it in the department, we show it back in Reserve for Retirees. We have it all broken out for you. It's sort of a way to perhaps not set expectations for employees.
Right.
By including it kind of in the detail. It's all there. I think they all tend to figure it out. But so what happened last year with parks is you had both the supervisors union and the clerical union, which probably makes up most of your department, who had no increases in their budget. So the number you're looking at in the book for 24 is actually the same as 23. The number that you see for 25 is the contractual increase for 25 on top of what their salaries are now that that 818 has been settled.
So
it's kind of a 2-year jump. So that's just another contributing factor to that 7% that you're seeing.
That would make more sense, of course, over a 2-year jump. So is it fair to say in some departments where, this particular contractual scheme and timing happened, we might anticipate a lower number than the 7.37 because it doesn't have the double kick-in as we.
Yeah, and you'll actually see in some of the smaller departments where where some of the positions appear, you'll actually see that there's no increase as you go across from 24 to 25.
Okay. Hey, thanks for the heads up on that. Appreciate it, and the perspective. Follow-up, though. Now, this is kind of a dual department discussion. We have had a lot of conversations, Kathy, about our fields and the ability to maintain them properly. What is your opinion, or I think that my gut tells me that if we're talking about increased personnel, it would probably be in physical services in order to maintain our fields in a more regular way than we have seen already. We've seen lots of examples, we get pictures all the time. Do you have an opinion about how much more support we need in order to better maintain our fields to a higher standard that, Weathersfield sporting leagues and passive and active recreation are sort of anticipating or expecting?
Sure. I guess if I were to look at it, I think when you look at the resources that maintenance has for the fields, I don't think it's kept up with what our needs are. And I think that that's just been going through the budget process.
Right.
So I would say that an example is we just renovated the high school baseball field, the infield, part of the outfield, and we put a new material in. I call it dirt, everybody else calls it material, infield material.
Yeah.
And it's probably 3 times more expensive than what we buy on a regular basis. And obviously Sally can speak better to that, but that's where we're going with what should be going onto our fields. And that will help with when it rains, when it's too dry. It's just a different type of material that reacts better to the weather. But that's a lot of money, and we're willing to put it on the high school field because that's our primary baseball field and it should have it. And it's what we're looking at. So that's one small example, Deputy Mayor, of kind of what we look at. And then you look at manpower and resources for being able to keep up with everything in the spring, to get everything up and ready, and then maintain it throughout the seasons.
Is it your opinion that the town needs more resources and physical services to keep up the maintenance of the field?
Yes.
And are there any resources that need to be allocated to your department for that same issue?
Well, we don't maintain the fields.
Right.
So it wouldn't be going in our budget?
Yeah, and I was asking if there's anything in your department in particular. Maybe the answer is no, but it might be
Well, I
that
can
you
get more
needed
bases and those kinds of things. I mean, again, we manage our budget with our equipment for the fields, and we don't have the needs that go, we don't have the maintenance needs for the fields in our budget.
Okay, but you did mention an item like bases, so is there an inventory, an equipment, supplies type item that we need for our town? Like, are we running out of lines to line baseball fields or football fields or whatever? I'm making that up as an example. Don't
Sure.
take that as a specific place.
No, I think right now, you saw our materials and supplies account went up a little bit. It's because the bases go up a little bit, and I'm using examples too. We'll buy the bases, the pitcher's mounds.
And that's for the basketball,
Yeah,
all that.
exactly, yeah. We do all of that, those kinds of things, and they just go up, but they go up gradually.
And you think that there's, right now, that's sufficiently funded, though, for a high level of expected maintenance for Weathersfield's recreational facilities?
Well, I can always use more money. We're doing okay. We're certainly keeping up with the needs that we have for the fields. I think we're going to be looking at, when we talk about the kinds of things we purchase, besides that, we buy the equipment boxes that you see out at the field. Sometimes we go in partnership with some of the sports groups. We may split that cost. They may buy them 1 year, they may last 5 years, and then we buy them. So we do work together on that.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Councilor Dirk.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. I have a quick question on the Weathersfield Early Childhood Coordinator. My understanding is that we split this cost with the Board of Ed, correct?
Yes.
So we are increasing our share from 20,000 to 25, and the Board of Ed pays 30,000, is that correct?
That is correct.
Is that for just one person, or is that for more than one people?
That's for one person.
One person? And that only covers the salary, or that covers some other expenses that they have as a?
Just the salary.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Dirk. Further council comments? Counselor Zambrello.
Thank you. I just had a question. There's a couple items in the current year's budget that are comparatively under budget to where we are in the fiscal year, and I imagine that's at least partially because we still have several months of warm weather left in this fiscal year. But I'm just looking for a little clarification on that. So in particular, the water charge and the facilities and equipment rentals, can you just elaborate a bit on those lines?
Sure. The water charge there's a big number in there for Millwood's swimming area.
Okay.
If you drive by it right now, you'll see it empty. And when we fill it up, that cost is, we budget for that cost, and every year we ask MDC if we don't have to pay it. And so far, they've said we don't have to pay it, but we never know if that's going to be true for this year. We budget for it, and then when it's left over, it becomes a surplus.
I see. Okay, thank you for clearing that up. And the other one I asked was the rentals facilities and equipment rentals.
So let's see. Part of that is the portalets, and part of that is we rent buses throughout the year, and really when we start with our summer camps, we do busing, so we haven't done some of that now for the, coming into June for our camps.
Yeah.
It's mainly for that therapeutic recreation, so transportation of kids to Camp Sunrise is what we provide, and we won't get that bill until June comes for the upcoming camp season.
Okay, great. Thank you for explaining.
Thank you, Counselor Zambrello. Further council comments, questions?
Sure.
Counselor Clancy.
Kathy, is there really no need for the T-ball field at the green? I feel like, as a neighborhood, we should be doing more just to have people come out there now that we're not going to have the Corn Fest. And, it seems like it would reduce use at Millwoods and be a very simple fix.
Well, your last sentence, we actually talked to Little League this year. We thought it was a simple fix, and they would be able to use it this year. And we went out there and literally looked at the field, and that infield is not as level as you think it looks. It has many depressions and uneven surfaces where we literally have to dig the whole thing up and I'll say level it off. It has to be sloped the right way. But we don't have time to do that in the spring, but it is a plan to do it over the summer or fall to have it ready for next year.
Oh, good. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Counselor Clancy. You'll be able to look out your house and
Yeah, we'd like to see some action out there.
watch the kids play and, be on your porch. And any other questions from councilors? Thank you, Kathy. I think we're going to move on to Elderly and Youth Services. Erica? Thank you, Kathy and Rachel, on that one.
So now I'll do an overview of social and youth services and senior services. So as you all know, with social and youth services, first of all, we start with all our basic needs, assistance to residents in town. And that is a variety of things that also include energy assistance, renter's rebate. A big part of the department is the food bank that we operate, that a staff member oversees, and oversees all of the donations coming in and the food going out. And it's interesting to note that when I talk about all the donations coming in, the food bank is not run by town budget dollars. It's strictly all donations. And we have a very generous community. And so that's just, it's always nice to see that. And as the food comes in, it goes out pretty quickly. And then we look at, the senior center is located in the community center, and all those operations, we have one staff member, our senior center coordinator, that oversees those programs. We also deal with protective and emergency services that kind of match up with the basic needs, but it's all those emergency situations that always happen on Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock. And staff also deal with mental health crises. We do prevention and positive youth development. We have our juvenile justice and juvenile review board that we work with. We do opioid recovery, support to schools, and in the last couple of years, we've gotten into more grants and grant management, and we've brought in funds that we're able to hire different part-time or full-time people to be able to get more involved in what's going on in the community, and also particularly with our youth development and prevention. We've done a lot of work, and through the staff, we're in the fourth year? I love, going into we're into the fourth year of a 5-year federal grant for youth prevention in town, and we'll have the ability to apply for a second 5-year grant when it runs out. So, and that's brought a lot of resources to town that we've been able to do. And also, we work with the schools and provide support to them, again, on the youth side. So there's a lot going on in that kind of, if that's a quick look at the department, but if you stop down, you'd always see things going on, people being busy, and with the amount of staff we have, it's amazing all that they get done in a day. And I'm very proud of both the staff in Parks and Recreation and in Social and Youth Services. And just to give you an idea of the, kind of on the Parks and Rec side, so we have 10 full-time people. On Social and Services, I'll just kind of list out the staff there. We have the Assistant Director, Erica. We have a social worker who deals with all the families and individuals in town. And then we have an Elderly Services Coordinator who's a social worker for all the senior citizens in town. I mentioned earlier our Senior Center Coordinator. And then we have our Technical Assistant that's down in the office. And then the grant-funded positions that we have a full-time prevention coordinator that's through the federal grant, prevention grant that we have. We have through ARPA funding, we have a program specialist in our social services office, and we have a program specialist position at the senior center, because the senior center, the numbers have been increasing, and we have one person there. And she does an amazing job, but it's one person who has to do all the administrative work, all the programming, and all the interactions with the seniors. And through the ARPA grant, through the state, we were able to hire 2 different program specialists that work total about 25 to 30 hours a week to provide assistance to the senior center coordinator and work a lot with the programs, which leaves her some time to get some of the administrative work done and all the thought process going into what are we offering, what are the requests coming in. And what's nice is the seniors are asking for things, and we're definitely trying to provide those things. So, and then as I mentioned earlier, we share a position with the Youth Development Manager. So that's kind of a brief snapshot of all the different things that go on in our social and youth services.
Thank you, Kathy. We'll take questions from councilors. Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Thanks, Kathy, and group. Are there, I think as part of this department, there are people that I'll call, say, are in crisis, right, for whatever reason. Whether it's mental health, whether it's finance, whether it's domestic, right, all those things. Are there times where you don't have the resources to help somebody out? Or, not that they don't have the resources, but you don't have the resources or the time, or put another way, in non-elegant terms, you have to turn them away because you just don't know not what to do because of the training, but you don't have the resources to help or direct them to the resources?
So we never turn anyone away, but we sometimes hit walls with getting resources to individuals. I will use homeless as a great example because just how our structure in our state is not really set up to handle the homeless crisis that's going on. But we work effortlessly and tirelessly to try to get them to a place where they are at least stable for the moment until we can get them to their next process or step, whatever that might be.
And do we have the, capacity is a good word, and we have the capacity to handle that demand in Weathersfield right now?
We're doing it, absolutely. There is times where, the need is great at different times of the year for different reasons, but I think we're doing a great job. We could, we don't know what could come our way at any given point, but right now we're doing the best that we can, and I think we're doing a great job with it.
I'm going to talk to you about a couple anecdotes that I've heard, and anecdotes meaning not necessarily fact, they're sort of stories, right?
Sure.
But there is some discussion when I talk to seniors that at the senior center, that they're in desperate need for more staff over there, or hours of staff, and I'm not going to sort of, tell you exactly the staffing needs, because these are their stories. But what do you think, what is your impression of the ability to, at the senior center, properly provide the programs and support that the seniors need, and the level of that need, and what it would look like when, as we're setting the budget, we're setting policy. You talked about the head, and then there's two other people through other grants. Can you help me understand what that need is there, and then if there is more that's needed, maybe not with these extra people, what would that look like?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of our requests was for a part-time senior center program specialist, because the grant funds that we have for the positions I mentioned are going to run out in December of 2024. So we had requested a 6-month position starting in January for a 25-hour part-time position to go from January to June.
Would that just replace the person though right here? That's not an enhancement?
It would replace, what we have that's being funded by a grant, yes.
Is it your professional opinion, in your observations, that we need an enhancement there, or is the staffing level appropriate for the need?
I guess our ask, we started out small. If I were to really ask, I'd probably ask for a full-time position over there for what's going on.
Yeah, and what the seniors would like to see.
Yes.
And so what type of enhancement would that provide our community then if we were to grant such a request? I shouldn't say grant, but, find the resources.
I believe that a focus would be to kind of engage more of our younger seniors, so offering different opportunities for them, maybe extended hours, because right now, some of our older senior citizens don't come out at night, so we don't do, or like to travel as much in the evening, so we don't offer programs, but we do have younger seniors who are asking for that, because they're still working, so when they get out of work, they want to have something to go do. So that's kind of one example of what we think would be really beneficial for the senior center.
And where would I find that position? There's the part-time plus the position sort of discussion that you just talked about. Where is that in the budget? Or is it not in the budget?
It's not in the budget. It was a request, but it's not in the manager's budget, the part-time position. The full-time position we didn't even ask for.
And the part-time position is, what would you call that position?
Program specialist.
And the full-time is the same position, just more hours?
Yes.
That's all the questions that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Further questions by councilors? Councilor Clancy?
Debbie, how's the camp fund doing? Do you have enough money for the demand that you expect this summer?
That fund gets depleted every year, for
Okay.
sure. Yes. So we don't have as many donations that come in for the camp fund. We are giving out close to 100 scholarships each summer.
Okay.
We support it through, we have donations that come in general, so no one designates them to anything specific. So we're able to tap into those. We have used some positive youth development money grants we could put towards that as well.
Okay.
But it does get depleted out annually.
Okay. Do you have any fundraisers planned?
Our Youth Advisory Board, or We Hope Coalition group, they definitely continue to support that. But to sustain it annually, it's a pretty large sum.
Okay. I was just thinking if you had a date and an event, we could see
Oh,
it now on
oh.
TV here, but.
Puerto Vallarta.
It's not coming up yet.
Oh, it's in May?
No, we don't have it confirmed yet.
Oh, okay.
We're working on a new
All
date,
right,
yes.
good to know.
Thank you, Council Clancy. Further council questions? I'll just add, I'm one of those younger seniors, and I'm a member of the Senior Center. In fact, I will be there tomorrow because I've been asked to answer any questions that the seniors might have about the budget, and I'm there fairly often, and I get asked a little bit about the budget, but I get asked much more about the building, and I know you mentioned about that, and it's certainly a priority for all of us. I just have one question, Erica, and that is, what do you see now as the biggest priority? What's keeping you guys the busiest? What maybe is keeping you up at night? And does it have any budget implication for us?
Budget implication, I wouldn't say that so much, but homeless has definitely, we've seen an increase being, having the Berlin Turnpike and the Silestein Highway. We definitely get transient populations that are staying at hotels, motels, who run out of funds. We get calls, and we have to figure out kind of how do we assist this, family or this individual. So that takes a lot of time just because the system is so backed up right now across the state. So it's not just a Wethersfield problem, but I do think we see a lot of it because of where we're located. Also, mental health is huge right now. We tap into a lot of resources and insurance, people with insurance. Our problems a lot of times is just how the state is set up with long wait lists, providers that are no longer maybe, are full capacity. So things that are out of our control, but we still have to work with the systems that we have to work with, unfortunately.
Well, your work is very much appreciated, and I know the myriad of issues you deal with and the complications, and they keep growing. As our society continues to change, people have more and more challenging issues, and I know your department has to deal with many. Yeah, Councilor Dirk.
Thank you, Mayor. A quick question. So just remember recently somebody mentioned some difficulties that kids have in school who are affected by homelessness. How big of a problem is that? Like, how many families do we have who actually live in Wethersfield, have kids going to school, but they're actually homeless? Or they're just mostly people just going through?
I don't have that number. The school has a better handle with that number because they do identify that. The problem with us working with the homeless population is they're very transient. So just because they're in Wethersfield doesn't mean they're going to Wethersfield schools. The state has a great law in place where it's called McKinney-Vento. So if you are deemed homeless, you are able to stay in your district that you were going to already, and they have to provide transportation for that. So with that being said, there could be students coming in from Hartford that go to Wethersfield schools, or staying in motels, maybe in Rocky Hill or Berlin, that are still getting transported over to Wethersfield. But the school system would have that number.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other council question? Councilor Rhodes.
Piggybacking off of the question about mental health, one of the things, this is near and dear to my heart.
Appreciate that.
And one of the things that I've seen over the years and in different towns is that you'll have some towns that have very robust clinical services through their human and social services, right? And then they're able to provide some of that clinical support that schools need. We don't have that, right? And at the same time, the schools don't have the mental health support that they need. And it seems like one way or another, we need to be providing that, whether it's through the schools or through the town. I don't know if there is a way that is more or less cost effective. I've seen some youth service bureaus do incredible work in school systems. I don't know if that's a more affordable option than paying for social workers in schools. It just seems like either way, we need to do one or the other in town, because that's just going to keep bubbling up. Do you have any thoughts about that as a possible direction for us to go? Again, it's not necessarily a question for today's budget, but
Understood.
is that something that is a part of the sort of looking forward?
Sure, so I'm glad you mentioned that because it is a priority. And what's interesting is after COVID, like the state education, they threw a lot of grant money out there to support mental health, and all of that's ending. So this is going to be a very interesting year when we see all those grants go away for mental health, how that's going to affect our students. So I do think it's needed. I think we could do wonders in our department. We would have to hire additional staff to support that, at least to have a gap or a bridge to getting them into more permanent services is where I think of would be useful. I think it's something we can explore. I'm a licensed mental health, clinician, so I appreciate having that immediate, catching them when they're ready to accept help or they need help, so that they can get their needs met. So I see that being beneficial in the future, something for us to discuss. There's always the option of, having insurance reimbursement, too, if you have a licensed clinician that's doing the counseling. So there's a lot of options there. We used to have it years ago, before my time, and I know it kind of ended, but I think this is a time, and we're coming to a point where we might need to reconsider that.
I think the piece about insurance is powerful, right?
Yeah.
That it's not ideal, but it helps with that funding, right?
Yes.
And a short-term model, that idea of, being able to provide, say, 6 to 8 weeks to assess and give them some support while you're finding that rare private practice that has a spot open, right?
Or the ICAPs.
Exactly.
Or the in-home treatment, intensive treatment. It's exactly. So just bridging that gap is where I see us playing a role in that.
Okay.
The interesting, I'm going to get off my soapbox, but the interesting part with insurance is all these high deductibles too. So that's where we struggle. We see families who are suffering, who are screaming out for help, and sometimes they just can't afford it because they have to make a choice of feeding their families or paying a high deductible to go get treatment. And that should not be a choice that has to be made.
Right there with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That was helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rhodes. Any further council questions? Hearing none, thank you all. Thank you for all you're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have the last group of the night. Up next, Economic Development, Planning, CIP, Joya, Vlada, Justin, I see you all there. And councilors, we're pretty much on schedule. We're due to get out by 9, and we're maybe 5 minutes behind the 8 o'clock start of this. So we're doing well.
We are doing well.
We're doing well. Welcome, Justin, Vlada, Joya. I don't know who's first.
And as this group is coming up, Mayor, I'd just like to point out, you're going to know this is probably the largest percentage increase of any budget in the whole book right now. And part of that,
as bad as it gets?
Part of that reason is because of the restructuring that you'll see later in my budget, but there were 2 positions that were in the town manager's budget. One is the recent position of the capital improvements coordinator, Vlada Shalkova, who's here, and the other is Charles Morrison's position, that's property maintenance and zoning enforcement. Those positions made a lot more sense into this newly restructured Economic and Community Development Department, formerly Planning and Economic Development. So that is a big chunk of that shift. So just so you understand that starting out, before they even asked for anything, we made this move. I think they're supportive of the move, and it makes a lot of sense. If you don't know, Justin used to have the position of property maintenance and zoning enforcement here in Weathersfield, and anywhere else I've been as a former planner and economic development director myself, that role's always been under that office, and it just makes sense there. So we did some restructuring here. So just before they jumped in, I wanted to, so you don't lose it when you look at that percentage, so that's a little explanation. No.
Very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. I don't know who's first. Joy, are you first? I see the microphone in front of you, so I don't...
I'll start.
All right. Thank you. Go ahead.
So thank you very much. I am Joya Zach, Director of Economic Development. I'll talk about that part of our newly restructured Economic and Community Development Department. and then I'll pass it along so Vlada and Justin can explain their pieces to it. So as Director of Economic Development, I have numerous hats I wear. First, obviously, is economic development, business retention, expansion, making sure we're business friendly, offering programs to incentivize development and investment in our community, but also to thank the developers who do stay here, the property owners that keep their plazas full, that keep their buildings going, and contribute to our tax roll consistently. I also wear the hat of redevelopment. So we are looking as a group at the blighted and underutilized properties and hoping to make those more vibrant, not just to bring them better on the tax rolls, because most of them are paying taxes, but to improve their contribution to our community so that they are vibrant centers versus blighted or underutilized buildings. The third area I work in is with the Heritage Commission, and that is the group that promotes our largest cultural and historic district. We promote the town. We try to enhance everything the shopkeepers, the chamber, and other partners do to promote their programming. We try to enhance that. We try to get the word out. We try to make sure CT Visit knows that we're noticed in the news. We try to bring people to town. We try to make the town vibrant and exciting, not just for the residents, but to invite visitors and tourists to come and return with all of our numerous events. We maintain, among the three groups, I have the Historic Weathersfield website, the Great Elm website, which both have community calendars and show our assets, and we also do the social media. So there's a lot going on, a lot with marketing and business retention and being friendly all around. I'm going to pass it to Vlada.
Hello. I'm Vlada Shelkova, the Capital Improvements Project Administrator, and my role centers around improving the capital needs of the community. So that can range anywhere from helping to support road projects, building renovations, HVAC updates, and anything of the sort. And often it's pairing grant funding opportunities with those projects so that we can maximize the funding that we have internally and leverage what's already available out there. A big piece of my work is often scoping out the project, so really understanding what goes into the process of changing out the HVAC or doing something like that. So working with the department heads in those departments, meeting with agencies to understand how the grant opportunities would support that project or what's necessary for us to demonstrate, and then helping to manage that project and move it along the process once we get to the contracting phase, if we do, with the grants. Really working to find those opportunities and provide sustainable resources for our community, and really try to make Weathersfield the great place we know it is, and just to kind of fill those holes where we need to in the capital needs department.
Hi, I'm Justin LaFountain, the town planner. I started here end of January this year, so I'm still relatively new, but I think with the restructuring of this department, I think we have a great team here, and I think what we're trying to do is be a lot more proactive than we've been able to be in the past. So I think some of the things I want to highlight are some of the, the groups and the commissions and whatnot that the people you're looking at, and the rest of the people in our department staff. So the Planning and Zoning Commission is a major staffing responsibility that I have. They meet twice a month and they review all the development applications in town. Lately we've been seeing a pretty good number of applications coming through. We have about 4 every meeting, so it keeps us busy. I also have the Design Review Advisory Committee, so we review that for aesthetic appeal. We have the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advocacy Group, which we work with to try to enhance the bikeability and walkability in town. And then we have various advisory committees that we also staff. A couple of the big initiatives we're working on right now are things that we've been trying to catch up on over the past few years. Our Plan of Conservation and Development, which is the 10-year master plan for the town. We're a little bit overdue with that, but we're bringing that up to speed now. We've hired a consultant that's going to work with us, and we'll be having advisory committee meetings starting in the next few weeks. So we're looking forward to getting that going. Our affordable housing plan is another thing that we are catching up on, and that's going to be taking place over the next few months as well. Again, another thing that we're looking forward to. One of the things that I really want to work on is updates to our zoning regulations. Some of them have kind of stayed stagnant for a little while. Some of them are a little bit not quite as business-friendly as we'd like to be. And in some cases, not as resident-friendly as we'd like to be. So we'd like to adjust some of those, and, they're all big processes. So those are the kind of things that we sort of deal with on a daily basis. And I don't know if we should highlight some of the changes in the budget, or if you guys have questions for us.
I think that'd be good if you highlight some of the big items in the budget, and then we can ask questions or the changes in the budget.
Sure, so I'll note a couple of my things. The main one that the town manager has already mentioned is that the zoning enforcement and property maintenance officer is shifting from the town manager's budget to the economic and community development budget. So that's a additional person. It's not an added cost to the town, it's just sort of shifting of where the money is coming from. So that's the added cost with that. We have also added an additional person that we would like to see, a technical assistant, and that person would assist all of us, with our various projects. I'll let Vlada and Joya speak a little bit more to their details, but for me, it'd be a lot of research, things like when I mentioned updating the zoning regulations, there's some background research that needs to be done with that. And a lot of times, we're sort of moving on a reactionary basis to developers coming in. We have to take these meetings, and, it takes us away from some of those research aspects, so I think that would help with that. But Vlada, if you want to speak a little bit more how that would help you.
Definitely. With the grants, there's just a lot of pieces, and the project overall, a lot of pieces that have to do with reporting, putting together the grant applications, research, writing, and then reporting on the back end. And also, I'm not sure we're not quite sure exactly what the position would be, depending on the person and this and that, but there's also project management, and I also help to oversee the strategic plan for the community. So just either supporting that or alleviating some time to be able to focus on those other areas. But there is quite a bit of work for the grants, and to be able to apply to more grants, there's a need for support to be able to do that.
And to echo that, it's also the research and analytics. We all kind of need the same data as we function as a unit. I'll use it in one way, Vlad will use it another, Justin will use another, but it all comes together. So this person would support us all that way with research writing. Again, if they have any kind of marketing skills or something, we're looking for like this big role, but we'll focus it as we kind of narrow down if it is funded. One of the things we've noticed as we've come together and talked about our department is, 5 of the 6 strategic priorities from the strategic plan we touch upon. In one way, shape, or form, we impact them all. And, education, which kind of seems to the side, yet through economic development, I'm working with the schools to work on career development, getting businesses in and out of the schools to do internships, et cetera. And I know Vlada interacts with schools with a lot of the grant process. She does too. So, we're supporting a large lift, and so an extra person just helps us do our expertise and give somebody else the time to go do that digging that can take hours away from us. In terms of other changes to our, most of them come under mine. Travel, one of the things, travel, training, and dues increased, and that was at the recommendation of our town manager, our manager, who recommended to Justin and I that we attend a national conference. We both attend local, state conferences or workshops. Most of them are free. CCM, there's a charge, but then we do some regional stuff. I went to a historic New England one for the first time last year, which was fantastic. I learned more than I thought I would at that conference, and I'm looking forward to the one this year. And then, obviously, a national one, and we've done some research on it, and it looks like it would be about $5,000 for each of us to attend the conference that's appropriate for our expertise. There's a typo in, it's not RD, it's for RDA. We're looking to put some money in to help look at the blighted properties, appraisals, or maybe a highest and best use analysis, depending on what we need. So that's the increase we're looking for there. The strategic plan was a carryover. It is not an increase, so that was an error on this memo. And I'm looking for a slight increase in the tourism budget. We are in the process of working with a marketing consultant if I get a grant to help pay for that. And we realize we're just a little tight on our dollars to keep marketing. Things have gone up. You know, the stuff we normally do, the ads, the rack cards, just to keep a status quo have gone up. So that's where the increases are.
If you guys are complete, thank you. I will now open it up for council.
You might ask, yeah, CNEF.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. I didn't go that far. The CNEF request for 1.5 million is to kind of refund the programs that were new as of 2023 that council funded last year. These are the programs that we used for economic development. It funded the facade program that we had, and it allowed us to offer a business development expansion grant as well as a small business investment loan. We rolled those out in January of '23. Applications have come in and the funds are just about exhausted. We're just in the process of approving the last couple applications. They were very well received. What I'm asking for this year is the pool so that we can draw on. Depending on the project, we might see a heavier lift on like facade applications one year versus the small business loan. So I'd like the opportunity to use the money as the projects come to us, as opposed to having a very finite pool, because we did have to limit some of our funding to the applicants, even though their projects were much larger. These programs were very well received. It resulted in over $2.5 million to date in real estate investments to redevelop a property, open up, build the new plaza on Berlin Turnpike, for example, which is underway. It also has resulted in over 50 new jobs to our town, and just one project alone brought in over $350,000 in new personal property assessment. So, I don't have the real estate because some of them are not on the real estate tax appraisal list yet. They're not on the grand list yet, I should say. But we'll see those coming in the next year. So, again, so for our, $1 million investment, we're at over 2.6 already of private investment to match, so, and growing.
Speak to the CIAC budget that we had submitted. It was originally submitted under the town manager's request, but it was for an ask of $400,000 for grant matches on the list. It's not ranked on the list that you see inside the preliminary budget book. The CIAC, the committee had asked that it decided not to actually rank it because their opinion or their thought process was that along with several other items, should just be built into the budget. So they chose not to rank that on the list for that reason, because they believed that it should just be incorporated without having to vote on it and allocate funding there from their list. So just wanted to speak to that item.
Thank you. Appreciate all that. Now I'll ask for Counselor Clancy. Quick. Yeah, Counselor Clancy.
Can you clarify at the very bottom here, it says something about clothing and shoes?
It's for our CEO official, I believe.
That's a transfer.
Yeah, so the union contracts require that certain employees in 1303 have a clothing allowance. That's steel-toe shoes, uniform type things. A lot of times the zoning enforcement officer is going to properties and he's, interacting with people, and if he doesn't have identification, it can be a little dangerous. So that's why that's in there. And again, that's just a shift from the town manager's budget.
Thanks. That's not an increase.
Thank you, Counselor Clancy. Counselor Dirk.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for presenting. I see you guys along the EDIC Commission. Just to clarify a few things, so 47,000 increase for RDA. Are we talking about the best use and appraisals of some of the properties that we discussed before that are privately owned but not really for sale at the moment, just exploring what the possibilities are in future?
Yep, it's a combination. It's for some of the obvious properties that have been vacant for, years. And also to explore potential state properties that might be decommissioned in the next few years that we're hearing about. So we want to be ready to act as a town if those become available to us, because those are currently not on our tax rolls. So, I heard someone ask another person here, like, what keeps you up at night? And that's what keeps me up. It's like, how do we balance the taxes? The burden is entirely on residents right now. We are land poor in terms of commercial land to add businesses or warehouses. We can't bring in anything large like that. We can do some smaller R&D, but if some of these properties come back, they're state-owned properties, so they don't pay taxes. If they become available to us to pass on to a developer to bring in an R&D facility or a new mixed-use development or whatever the need is, whatever the highest and best use is, we should be ready. We should know how to pursue that, and that's what that's for, is to really dig into maybe a couple key properties. It's not a lot of money, so we're going to kind of have to narrow our focus, and that's what that's for.
One more quick, I know it's a small amount, but is for advertising costs, what exactly are those for?
That's, the planning.
So whenever we have a application that goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission that requires a public hearing, we have to publish notice in the paper twice beforehand and once afterwards. So that's required by statute. We don't have a choice in it. When I was looking at the numbers from previous years, we've always come in over budget, so I asked for an increase just so we don't have to, like I said, we have to pay it anyway, so it's nice to just have that money in that pot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Dirk. Further, Counselor Zambrella.
Hi, thank you. I have a clarifying question about that same item. In the summary here, because I'm not able to figure this out from the Blue Book, it says 5,000 for planning advertising costs, up from 3,750. So are you asking for 5,000 on top of 3,750 or the difference?
So it's misstated.
It's sort of backwards from the others. We're asking for 5,000 total.
Total,
Yeah,
okay.
it's up 1,250 from the 3,750.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not an increase of 5,000.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Counselor Zambrella. Further council questions? Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start, not too many questions here, but I'll start with Justin. You had the microphone. You mentioned something, that, as you know, this town struggles primarily for one and one reason only. 90% is residential, 10% is not. We could fund schools, we could have fewer people and less resources needed to have those individuals. So you spoke about refreshing, I'll use that word, our zoning regulations to increase our commercial and industrial capacity, by which to then change that percentage dynamic. What resources do you need in the next fiscal year in order to do that, so that Weathersfield can have success moving forward?
No, that's a great question. I think the big thing is getting that additional person. Because right now, so much of what I do is sort of...
Specifically, that is the support staff for for all three of you?
Correct.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
Go on, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. So much of what I do right now it's sort of reactionary. So a developer comes in, they have a plan, I meet with them, I go through that, I have to review it, all that kind of thing. All those types of things, along with like the POCD update, the affordable housing plan creation, these things all take time, and it doesn't give me a lot of time to spend, my resources to dig into some of our zoning regulations. And zoning regulations updates they're time heavy. They involve researching not only what we have in our town, but what other towns and surrounding neighborhoods have, and we have to find out what's working, what's not. There's a lot of things that when you're looking at zoning regulations, some things look really good on paper, and then once you put them in place, they don't work that well. So that's why a lot of this research is necessary to kind of see, okay, this looks good in, I'll make up a town, East Hartford, but is it really working? We have to look and see what the effect of that is. And the Planning and Zoning Commission that I work with in this town is very well-versed. They've been on it, they have a lot of experience with it, and they ask those types of questions. And so I have to be very prepared when I go to them with, this type of update. So that kind of thing, that background research, that added help and support would be a huge, huge support in that.
And what would be your timing expectation if we were to provide you that resource so we can get updated zoning in order to swing that percentage in the residents' favor?
Well, there's a couple of different answers to that. There's a realistic answer and there's a hopeful answer.
I'll take them both.
I think a hopeful answer would be, hopefully within a year, we could amend the zoning regulations and start to see some effect. Realistically, if we implement zoning regulations that are newer and updated, and to be clear, I'm not saying rewrite our entire zoning regulations. I'm saying let's look at certain sections that seem outdated and update those, to sort of get the biggest bang for our buck up front. And
Would you
once we...
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Would you concentrate the biggest bang for your buck to be in the commercial and industrial arena?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
That's okay. So I think that would be the biggest help overall. What I was going to say is once we get those regulations in place, assuming they get approved and whatnot, it then is a slight bit of a waiting game to see who's going to bite, what developer's going to come in, and that's why we work together to, sort of advertise these types of changes. Once we, look at one of our zones and say, you know what, this is too limiting, we're not allowing this here, then Joy and I can work together to have, go to different businesses and say, well, look, you might have been looking at this before, it wasn't allowed, now it is.
Sure. Now, where can I find in your budget request this additional person?
The accurate, the closer cost for that person is located, I believe, on, I think it's like page 9 of the document, but page I-4. And it's line...
Of the blue budget?
I do
Book.
not know what the blue budget is.
I think it goes that far.
So C73 has the list of salaries, I think new position listed there.
Yes, technical analyst number 6.
C73.
Oh, okay.
C73?
Yeah,
But that's not the
technical analyst.
total cost.
And I see technical analyst 83,402.
Right, but that's not the,
That's
not the
salary and
total
wages.
Okay.
That's salary and wages.
And then health on top of it, I'm sure?
Right, and that's built into those numbers below. Yep.
Okay, so C73, line 6. Now, Justin.
Yep.
This is not unique to my experience. When I go door to door in every section of this town, the number one thing they don't talk about is the plan for zoning and development moving forward. The number one thing that they do talk about, more than the schools, is code enforcement. And that's now your sort of section, right?
Yep.
How many code enforcement people do you have? One. Do you think that this town would benefit for enforcing its code if they had more than one?
I would absolutely love it if we did. If we had a separate zoning enforcement officer and a separate property maintenance officer, yeah, I think that'd be great. But
Where can I find that particular line item, or where would it go in the budget?
where would it go?
Yeah.
Well, it would go under our staff. So right now, we have our property maintenance officer in number 4. So we would add a separate line item for...
Same page?
Yep.
Was it C73?
C73, yep.
And would it go in that same section 6?
It would be after 4.
Oh, property maintenance?
Yeah, so we would...
C73, line 4?
It would be property maintenance officer and zoning enforcement officer. You'd have another line under that.
And I will say, I did that job for about 2.5 years before, and it's thankless. and it's difficult work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stress that goes along with that work, and I know that, our current zoning enforcement officer, Charles, would be thrilled to have additional support too. So.
Sure. I think our town people would be thrilled to have, for that department to have additional support. So moving on to, now Joya, sorry. I do that every time. I'm sorry, I apologize 100% to you. I've known you for years now. In the same vein, right, we have this 90-10 split, which is the bane of our budgetary existence. What support can we give you, aside from the staffer that you're all going to share, in order for you to be able to hone in specifically, not on mixed development necessarily, not on business openings and supporting internships that we talked about today, but specifically to grow our grand list in the commercial and industrial sectors, which is our number one need in the whole town?
I mean, fund the programs from the CNEF, because that has attracted developers in, new businesses in, and just help us market the town right now, really. I mean, we just need to let people know we're here. We're business friendly. We are willing to work with them. We're working as a team here. You come see Justin or I, or even Vlada sometimes, if you stop in our office, and we're just going to have a unified message. We're going to do what we can to help you through the process. We're going to walk you end to end, help us get that word out. That is the one thing that has helped us stand out recently, and we hope to keep that going.
So to get the word out, do you need us to go to events, programs around the country, around the world, in order to bring in companies to Wethersfield for this type of thing? Is that what the kind of things
I
you're
don't know if I want to go that far, but at least in the state.
Matt has a travel budget, so we can go.
Hey, if I'm there, we'll go to Nagayo,
I think it's also helping us advocate with our state delegation, when we apply for grants. And our congressmen, our congressional delegation, the grant we just received for Safe Streets for All, again, which is, our work with engineering, partnering with Rocky Hill, keeping those partnerships going. We can do as much as we can, but if they know we have the support of not just the town manager, but the mayor and the council behind us, that carries the residents with it, I think it sends a really powerful message.
When you say they, who do you mean in that sentence? When they know?
When developers, when anyone, hears that the town is going to them together, and they're not going to come to me and they're going to get one story and the mayor will tell another, and Justin will then say, no, you can't come to town because our zoning doesn't allow it, that's disjointed. Working together, it creates, it's what's setting us apart right now. It's, talk to some of the new people who've come to town and they'll tell you that.
And now you mentioned as one of those tools is, I think it's the 1.5 million that you're requesting for this fund, is that right?
Yes.
So I would imagine though that maybe, not this today of course, but soon, that you do track the amount of increased assessed value for commercial and industrial specific. So if we take this 1.5 and put it to work, that's specifically related to an increased assessment on our tax rolls of Y, which then leads to, of course, you do the math with the mill rate and you find out what the revenue stream is. Do you have that analysis for the 1.5? Because if this is one of your major tools and we want to be able to support that, we want to know the math, of course. We want to know the return, so to speak.
Yeah, and I don't have the return on the new programs because they're just that new. I can tell you, as I had mentioned, one business alone brought in an additional over $350,000 in personal property that'll be assessed for taxes. And then they're investing over $2.5 million, $2.6 million already in just the buildings themselves. So that will increase the property assessment, real estate assessment, when that happens this year. They didn't hit the grand list before. So I'll have that. I can
There is
tell you
some way
from
to
the
project
facade.
that, you know, like.
If you look back at the facade program that's been in place for over a decade, you know, that return on investment alone has been over 13%. So, you know, with some buildings a lot higher, but on average.
Understood. Thank you very much for your time, all three of you. You're probably one of the most important sections of this town at this moment in time for our budgetary purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Further council comment or question? Councilor Dirk.
Thank you, Mayor. This is not a question about the budget, but since we're all here, I wanted to mention an idea. I know we discussed something briefly on one of the EDIC commission meetings, but I look at different properties, and I own different properties in the past on Silas Dean, and I come to think that, for example, the area from Police Department through North Street, it's never going to get any better because there are smaller homes, they're always going to stay smaller, office buildings and things like that. I think we have to find a solution, if there's something everybody agrees on, that we need to start acquiring one by one of those properties as they come available, and down the road, just knock them all down, bring a developer who's going to build something huge that's going to bring in tons of money. So I think we need to look at those different opportunities, and I think there are a lot of homes, buildings on Silas Dean that they've been owned by same people for so many years, they're not interested in putting money into them. And a lot of times they do get sold to somebody else who doesn't really come in and invest in them a lot, so they just continue to look the same. So I think if we find a way as a town to set aside some money, start purchasing some of those, and then sell them as a package of a few different properties where you can have a big developer come in and put in something that we want, I think that'll be one of the ways to address this issue.
Thank you, Councilor Dirk, and I couldn't agree more with that in terms of being more creative, potentially being more aggressive, and looking to potentially purchase some of these properties when they come available. Any other council questions? So I will thank the three of you for all the hard work you do, for being here tonight, and a great presentation and answering our questions. Before we wrap up, the meeting tonight, I want to make everybody aware we have 2 budget sessions next week. One Wednesday, please note the change in time. Wednesday, the 24th is at 5 o'clock, so 5 to 7. And then Thursday, the 25th, will be at 6 o'clock. And all the meetings are in here. And I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Councilor Rhodes, second by Councilor Zambrello. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.